At this time, I'd like to call forward brother. I've been looking forward to hearing him speak. I haven't heard him in a while. And also to hear him sing. That's why I was kind of edging him on to lead a song, because I just love, as I said, the song. He has one of the best voices out there, as well as able to read Moors and Moorish songs. I'm going to call forward brother D. Clarkdale for 54.
We're marching into Mecca, that beautiful city of love.
Now we're marching.
We're marching into Mecca, that beautiful city of love.
Well, if you want to know where we're bound,
That beautiful city of love.
into the holy city, Moabites did found.
That beautiful city of love.
Now we're marching.
We're marching into Mecca,
That beautiful.
that beautiful city of love.
Now we're marching.
We're marching into Mecca,
That beautiful.
that beautiful city of love.
It's where the physical part of man was first formed.
That beautiful city of love.
At the east gate, the cherubim with the flaming sword.
That beautiful city of love.
Now we're marching.
We're marching into Mecca,
That beautiful.
that beautiful city of love.
Now we're marching.
We're marching into Mecca,
That beautiful.
that beautiful city of love.
Praise Allah, Drew Ali, please take my hand.
That beautiful city of love.
Now the ancient name is Eden down in Canaan land.
That beautiful city of love.
Now we're marching.
We're marching into Mecca,
That beautiful.
that beautiful city of love.
Now we're marching.
We're marching into Mecca,
That beautiful.
that beautiful city of love.
Islam.
Islam.
I rise and I give praise to Allah, the wonderful originator of all that is in the heavens and the earth. And I give honor to his son, the illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, who was sent in due time by Allah to save me from myself. Praise him. I give honor to our past supreme grand advisors and moderators of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Brother C. Kirkman Bey, Brother F. Nelson Bey, and Brother J. Blakely Bey. I give honor to the fourth supreme grand advisor and moderator, also former Grand Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Brother R. Rodriguez. I give honor to the present Grand Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Brother R. Jonesville. I give honor to their assistants. I give honor to all officers of the Moorish Science Temple of America, past, present, and future. I give honor to everything that pertains to Islam. I give honor to all to whom honor is due. I would like to give special honor to the former Grand Governor of the state of New Jersey, Brother Ali Moore. That's why I sang Always Yaks, don't you hear, don't you hear? When I came into the temple the first time, this temple here, I was 21 years old. Brother Ali Moore used to sing, and he would talk to me, and he was a mufti, and he did all these various different things. He had a barber shop down in Camden. He was in the hood. He was doing his thing. He was someone that I could look to and see people that I know in, even though I did not know him. He had great attributes. He had great characters. He had faults. He had failings. I said, that brother was just like me.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
You know, and I give honor to him. And the reason why I was glad to hear that they wanted me to speak today was because there was something that Brother Ali Moore did my first tag day here in Moorish Science Temple number 28 that I held on to. He talked about the history of Tag Day, St. Patrick, and Ireland. And that was the first time that I had heard someone in the temple reading and giving some information or points of reference that I could go back and study. And I said, you know what? Because I had been studying, since I was a baby. And that's what brought me to the Moorish Science Temple of America by Allah and the Prophet's permission. So I wanted to read today, and I wanted to speak a little bit about some of the things to pass on to some of the younger Muslims and some of us who are not as young anymore. And Brother Rebels Bay, I just want to say about coming up here and that phone calls. I didn't realize it was you, bro. The phone call about the debt. So you got to work a second job. And, I was calling creditors and trying to, and I didn't even know it was Brother Rebels Bay. No, that's my boy, Brother M. Rebels Bay. Praise Allah. Let me read from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Circle 7, divinely prepared by the noble prophet by the guidance of his father, God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life of his father, God Allah. I'd like to read from page number 53, the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet, chapter number 43. Holy instructions from the Prophet, insufficiency of knowledge. If there is anything lovely, if there is anything desirable, if there is anything within the reach of man that is worthy of praise, is it not knowledge? And yet, who is it that attaineth it? The statesman proclaimeth that he hath it. The ruler of the people claimeth the praise of it. But findeth the subject that he possesseth it? Evil is not requisite to man, neither can vice be necessary to be tolerated. Yet how many evils are permitted by the connivance of the laws? How many crimes committed by the decree of the council? But be wise, O ruler, and learn. O thou that art to command the nations. One crime authorized by thee is worse than the escape of 10 from punishment. When the people are numerous, when thy sons increase about thy table, sendest thou them not out to slay the innocent, and to fall before the sword of him who they have not offended. If the objects of thy desire demanding the lives of 1,000, sayest thou not, I will have it. Surely thou forgettest that he who created thee created also these, and that their blood is as rich as thine. Sayest thou that justice cannot be executed without wrong? Surely thine own words condemn thee. Thou who flattereth with false hopes the criminal, that he may confess his guilt, art not thou unto him a criminal? Or art thou guiltless because he cannot punish you? When thou commandest to the torture him who is but suspected of ill, darest thou to remember that thou mayest rack the innocent? Is thy purpose answered by the event? Is thy soul satisfied by his confession? Pain will enforce him to say what is not, as easy as what is, and anguish hath caused innocence to accuse herself. That thou mayest not kill him without cause, thou dost worse than kill him, that thou mayest prove if he be guilty, thou destroyeth him innocent. O blindness to all truth, O insufficiency to the wisdom of the wise, know, when thy judge shall bid thee account for this, thou shalt wish 10,000 guilty to have gone free, rather than one innocent to stand forth against them. Insufficient as thou art to the maintenance of justice, how shalt thou arise at the knowledge of truth? How shalt thou ascend to the footstep of her throne? As the owl is blinded by the radiance of the sun, so shall the brightness of her countenance dazzle thee in thy approaches. If thou wouldest mount unto her throne, first bow thyself at her footstool. If thou wouldest arrive at the knowledge of her, first inform thyself of thy own ignorance. More, this is very important because, and I read this chapter because this is the chapter that talks about criminals, connivance of the laws, confessions, It talks about all these things that we see and hear about every single day. And it is particularly appropriate when you're talking about the Irish. Let me explain what I mean by it. The foundation of all police departments in all major cities is Irish. You gotta understand this. You gotta understand who these people are. You gotta understand what they were commissioned with and what their job was to do. We need to understand this. Everybody wearing green shirts saying I'm Irish today, it was St. Patrick's Day, and they don't even realize that his name wasn't Patrick. That was a name that he took on afterwards, after he was called to do a certain mission. Not even the Irish people today know that. You know, they just, go along with the rituals, dredging on burning sands and rocky soils, doing what their fathers did, not dreaming they could do all else. But by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali saying we would commemorate the Moorish rule of Ireland on this particular day, it lets me know that there's some connection that we have to them, and that we need to study the history. See, it meant that there's more to this Moorish Science Temple of America than meets the eye. March 17th is the day that's commemorated because St. Patrick, it was on that day that he accomplished the mission of kicking us out of Ireland. Now, in order to kick us out of Ireland, we had to understand, first of all, that we were there and that we ruled Ireland. Where is this? Who is this? And what was going on? First of all, Patrick's name was Mywin Sukat. That was his name. Now he took on the name of Patrick or Patricus, saying which means well born in Latin. And the reason why they say that it means well born because patris or patria in Latin means fatherland, the father, the country. So he who was representative of that was well born, even though he wasn't born in Ireland. All right. Another fact that they're gonna tell you about. Ireland had many different names, but the reason why it's so confusing, I'm going to read a little bit of something here. Now this book here that I'm reading from, as most of the research that I do, I usually read books that were published before 1865. All right? Sister Jefferson Neal Sister Jefferson Neal was the former Grand Governess of the state of New York. And she used to always say, she used to teach us, she said, if you don't want, I'm going to be nice about this now, an Asiatic to know something or find out about something, put it in a book. Right. You see? Because they're going to believe everything that everyone says, but they're not going to read it for themselves. And that's today. The reason why prior to 1865, specifically between 1779 and 1865, the reason why the truth was free to be out there is because if any more Asiatic was caught reading, they killed you. So you can put whatever you want to put in the book. In this particular book, I'm just going to read a little bit from this. It says, most Englishmen and Americans who have written on Ireland have labored under serious disadvantages. Not only were they ignorant of its true history and social conditions before visiting it, but they have not had the facility for acquiring correct information nor time to examine what lies beneath the surface. Sounds familiar? All right? This book was written in 1854, a very significant year, 1854. So it's letting you know that everything everyone is telling you about now, about Ireland, is based upon these people who didn't know what they were talking about. You need to understand that. The first name of Ireland, which we meet with, was Innis Nabofiadonubi, which signifies a woody island. It had many names after that, one of which was Erie, Irie, a name by which formerly Crete and Candia was called. Egypt, from whence the Candilians came, was called by that name. It says that all of those Candelians were banished out of Egypt. All right. Now, Ireland anciently was called Scotia, and later Ernia or Hibernia, was peopled by a colony of Phoenicians about 1,500 years before the birth of Jesus. That the Irish descended from the Phoenicians has been fully established by the ancient manuscripts that are still preserved in the country, and others that are deposited in English and continental colleges by inscriptions on Phoenician plates and tombs, by the identity of costumes, coins, and architecture, and by the identity of language, for the Irish language was that which was spoken by the Phoenicians. The Irish language, I'm going to read it again, was that which was spoken by the Phoenicians, as appears from Book of First Time, Sankeniothim, and other works have contained historical accounts of that wonderful people. Now, the ninth name it received likewise from the sons of Melius, who were from Spain, was Scotia, from their mother's name, Scota, or Scota, who was the daughter, this is their mother, she was the daughter of Pharaoh Nectanebus, king of Egypt. Or perhaps from themselves, they being originally of the Scythian race. It was also by these sons of Melius called Hibernia. Some say from a river in Spain called Iberus or Iberus. Now, there is today, as back then, a society called the Hibernian Society. And the reason why this is significant is because all police, military, and all these, they have, when you see funerals, you always, it don't matter if it was Asiatic or European, if they were obligated in the realm of the military or paramilitary, they will have bagpipes playing at the funeral service. This is by order of the ancient order of Hibernia. And I'm going to name 3 prominent members of that society. You may have heard of them. George Washington, Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, and I'll give you one more, General Henry Knox. You ever hear of Fort Knox? These were Hibernians. See, the thing about it is, you think about West Side Story and Officer Krumke, you know, there's always some kind of policing thing, and you got the Irishman there, and you got all this going on, and he's walking, he's whistling, he's doing this. Because as constables, as we know as muftis, we have a particular charge. Some people may think that is to control others. That's not the charge. The charge is to bring about harmonious conditions. And the Irish have done this more than many. They do it through song. They have a particular way about how their whole history is told in song and verse. We understand that. It was the only way we, through slavery, was able to give messages to each other. It was how we were able to give orders, how we were able to pass certain things that were forbidden to our children and other people. It was through song. So, Morris, my point in just giving this bit of information, and obviously I'm not going to speak much more because I'm going to give other people an opportunity to speak, but I wanted you to know that history is important to Moors. And that when you start looking and hearing what people are talking about, usually it's not right. You have to study it yourself. Ireland put people as their own true scholars say by Phoenicians. And you have to understand what Phoenicia was. You have to understand that. And this is the reason why I'm going to close with this. I remember studying before years ago about a Tyrian alphabet. Tyre was one of the main cities. It was a seafaring city, you know, kind of like Baltimore is today. All right? And they talked about the Tyrian alphabet. And Cadmus was a son, and he established Tyre. Other people that came out of Tyre were particularly two women. You may have heard of them. One name was Europa. That's who Europe is named after. All right, so when we start talking about Europeans being in Phoenicia, you got to understand, everybody we think is European is not a European. Or maybe they are, if you understand who Europa is. The other one was Elisa, also known as Dio. She was the founder of Carthage, you know, referred to today as Morocco. You know, so now the thing about the Tyrian alphabet, as they explained, they said the Tyrian alphabet was a Moabite alphabet. So anytime you're doing studies and referencing, and you're looking at it, and they start talking about the Phoenicians, they're talking about the Moabites. So you need to come to understand. They're not going to tell you that in school. They're not going to reveal that to you when you read in Newsweek. You have to go and find these older books. So when I saw this, and I saw that they were talking about the Irish, in particular, they say the ancient Irish. There's a difference between the Irish and the ancient Irish. Were descended from the Phoenicians. You got to understand, boys, we need to study. And it's very important now because things are about to change.
That's right.
It's 2013. It's not 1990, it's 1920. Things are about to change, and just wearing your fez is not going to get you there. It's going to be what's in your head, not what's on your head. So you better start studying this Holy Quran because it's in there. You better start studying the questionnaire because it's in there. You have to understand what Prophet Noble Ali is talking about. So Moors, with that, I'm going to say peace, and I'd like to thank the Moors for inviting me here, for calling me to speak, and I hope that anything that I've said today has been helpful, has inspired those Moors to do some research and do some studying, and if there were any errors in anything that I said, the fault is mine, it's not the prophet. Praise God. The prophet's calling, you can't hide. The prophet's calling, you can't hide. Oh, the prophet's calling, you can't hide. You can't hide, Muslims, you can't hide. The truth done come, you can't hide. The truth done come, you can't hide. Oh, the truth done come, you can't hide. You can't hide, Muslims, you can't hide. You can run to the rocks, you can't hide. You can run to the rocks, you can't hide. Oh, the rocks cried out, you can't hide. You can't hide, Muslims, you can't hide.